Hi, this is Anthony Everett. I am with BSK Theological Seminary, and I am the director of the Siloam Project, a project that focuses on bringing our community closer together, that community being our students, our alums, and all those who are friends and love BSK Theological Seminary. And so I want to welcome you today, and we have a couple of students that we're going to speak with today about contextual ministry. I actually teach contextual ministry, and so we're going to talk about contextual ministry with a couple of our students. We have Reverend B.J. Meyer, and we also have Reverend Holly Hatton. And so we want to, first of all, welcome them. If you could just say hello, give us your ministry context that you're in right now. Let's start with Holly.
Ladies first. My name is Holly Hatton. I'm the associate pastor at First Baptist Memphis, Tennessee. I've been on staff for 5 years. That's my home church. I grew up there, and I was called from within to serve.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome, Holly.
And this is I'm a first-year student at BSK.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Reverend B.J. Meyer.
Hi, yes, I'm B.J. Meyer. I'm also a first-year BSK student. Super excited about that. My title's kind of long, so I've just sort of been kind of telling people I'm the associate minister at Central Baptist Church. Technically, it is office administrator, senior adult minister, and organist. So kind of a mouthful and kind of a unique combination. So, but it was kind of started as an organist, and then sort of, I guess, in the right place at the right time, position opened up, and pastor kind of looked at me and said, "We think you'd be good at this, doing senior adult ministry and office work." So it's been a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it.
Excellent. We also have one other person joining us. That would be Mark Bullock. And Mark, we jump right on in. We welcome you, Mark. And first, before we go to Mark, BJ, where's your church located?
Oh, I'm sorry. Central Baptist Church is in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Okay, excellent. Mark, welcome.
Thank
We're
you.
just going around and we're having a conversation.
Absolutely.
And so this conversation, if you could pull the microphone just a little closer, yeah. And so this conversation is basically, we're talking about contextual ministries, the context that each of you are in. And first and foremost, we just want to get your name and the ministry you're doing. So if you could share that with us.
Sure. My name's Mark Bullock, and my ministry is kind of a patchwork quilt, because I'm pastor of a church, Englewood Baptist Church in Gladstone, Missouri, just north of Kansas City, and I help facilitate Community Growers Network, which is an engagement to try to find folks who are growing healthy food and get it to folks who don't have healthy food. And so the church and Community Growers Network kind of work together, and it's grown out of a Englewood Community Farm, which is food we grow at the church.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you here.
Thanks.
And so we'll go back to Holly. And Holly, we wanted to hear more about your ministry and as well to get an idea of how I know you're a first-year student, but how being at BSK has helped you in your ministry.
Sure. So as associate pastor, that's the catch-all. There are only two ministers on staff, so my senior pastor and then myself. And so there are seasons of a lot of work and seasons of a lot of work. So I decided to enter BSK using the Exploring Ministries certificate as a way of kind of dipping my toe in the water and seeing what I could handle with my full-time job and family responsibilities. And I started with spiritual formation, and it ended up being a huge gift because this ended up being a not only busy season at work, but a difficult season. We had several deaths within our congregation. One of my colleagues resigned in some not so nice circumstances, and so it was a hard semester. And spiritual formation forced me to take time to slow down, do breath work, explore different prayerful practices, not only within the class, but on my own. I had to do a project on a whole new spiritually formative practice, and mine was preparing the feast, cooking the evening meal, and using that as time to connect with God. And so that was perfect for me in this season and exactly what I needed. And it was a really wonderful way. Not only was I learning and reading wonderful people, but I was practicing something that I desperately needed in order to lead my congregation and through this period of grief and difficulty.
That's awesome. And sorry for all the grief that was taking place
Thank you.
in your ministry. One thing that I think is very important here, that you just mentioned spiritual formation. And in the program that we have at BSK, you'll find that the different classes weave in together with whatever the specific needs are. So spiritual formation, weaving in with contextual ministry, weaving in with other forms of other classes and what have you, helps to build the whole person within the school and within ministry. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
BJ, well, it's on you.
So it was funny when we watched the video of Holly yesterday at General Assembly here at CBF. I could identify so much with Holly's journey because I have a very similar journey. I actually started at Central in 2006 and worked there until 2014, and I was the organist, and then our music minister resigned after about 4 years, and I was kind of asked if I would consider doing that, and I'd filled in for him once and that sort of thing, and people seemed to like what I did, I guess, or whatever, and so they were like, "We think you can do this," and I said, "Are you sure?" And so I started doing it, and I enjoyed that, but then they came to me and said, "BJ, we think you have gifts that we think you're called to actually be a minister. We'd like you to get ordained." And I said, whoa, wait a minute. I'm not so sure about that. So, but I was very grateful that they gave me the space to kind of learn and grow. And I ultimately at that time chose not to become ordained. I subsequently left for about 6 years to go back into teaching. I was a band director prior to working at the church, and so I went back to teach at a Christian school that had just opened in the area, and so did that until the pandemic, and then pandemic kind of shut everything down. And so as it happened, Central was once again looking for an organist, so I kind of found my way back into Central, this time kind of in the role I described earlier as an office manager, and picked up the senior adult ministry, which I also did with the music back in 2014. So, but this time I was in a different place. And so when the question was asked again, what do you think about ordination? I said, well, let me, I didn't shoot it down. I was like, well, let me pray about it. And this time I just kind of felt that it was right. I was in a better place in my spiritual journey that I thought this could work, So, so I became ordained through my church about a year ago. And then after that, I thought, I'm aware of what I don't know, and I want to learn as much as I can to be the best minister I can be for my church and for those I care about. And so, but I'm married and I have 2 young children, so the idea of moving out of area to relocate to go to seminary, well, that just seemed out of the question. I didn't think that was possible. But thankfully I learned about BSK through the CBF Florida website, and I started kind of poking around, and then I called Abby and struck up a conversation with her, and next thing I know, it's like, okay, this could work. So I started in January with the Introduction to Pastoral Care course, which probably an odd first choice, but for me, it lined up with my schedule, my day off, but also as the senior adult minister, I'm doing a lot of visitation, so it just kind of seemed like a natural fit. And it was a great class. It challenged me a lot. One of the things that I really took away from it, that having grown up in a more conservative theological background, we were kind of taught that we're supposed to always have an answer for anything, as it relates to, with the Bible, so. And one of the most reassuring things was that it's not my job to fix or solve people's problems. And I just can't tell you what just a lightening of a load, that was for me. I thought, oh. and just being that listening presence was one of the biggest things I learned, is the greatest gift that I could give in regards to that ministry. And so I'm very grateful to Dr. Ivy and Professor Holman for that time this past semester.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, in this journey that you've taken and to be here at BSK, you mentioned Dr. Ivy and Professor Holman. And is there anything else in terms of schooling here that we've provided that has been of any?
So I actually kind of, again, similar to Holly, I knew at least going in that I probably only wanted to do one course initially, just to kind of, because I'm also working full-time in ministry, and my two children are on the autism spectrum, so that has its joys and that also has its challenges sometimes. And so I knew I was going to have my hands full, so I wanted to make sure that whatever I did, I tried to set myself up for success. So I'm going to actually be taking the spiritual formation class this fall, signed up for that. So was talking to Holly about that and kind of what I can expect. And I'm really excited, particularly because of, as I mentioned, having kind of grown up in that more conservative theological background. Probably about 8 years ago or so, I began to kind of move away from that into this sort of more moderate progressive sphere. And so it's kind of like, I know I don't believe this interpretation of what I read here anymore, but it's like, okay, so what replaces that? So that's where I'm really excited about theological education, to kind of help sort of continue to break that down and reform and kind of build and just just grow, but both spiritually, but also kind of in the ways that I'm able to pastor and minister to others.
That's excellent. I look forward to you being in a spiritual formation class, because I'll be co-teaching
Awesome.
with the Professor Ryan Schroner.
Very good.
And so,
Great.
looking forward to
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
That'd be wonderful.
Mark, you are following the Bible's mandate by feeding the people. That's what that ministry you just mentioned a moment ago is all about, doing what Jesus was doing. Not to be cliche, but really walking that walk. And so could you tell us more about that and how you're forming here at BSK is working together with that?
Yes. First of all, when you said the Jesus mandate, the first thing that popped into my head is one of the things that I am trying to refine, but believe in its basic form, is that the Beatitudes are the Jesus manifesto.
Okay.
And if we can begin with that,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're off to a good start.
That's good.
Yeah. So the ministry of the Community Growers Network is an evolution of the Inglewood Community Farm, which we started a little over 9 years ago. We decided we've got about 3 acres of grass we're cutting. Why aren't we growing food for our community? And some years, as is true of all farmers, some years are better than others.
Mm-hmm.
But in the last 2 years, we've begun to collaborate with others, find out who else is growing food, where is their food going, and how can we build something that's more useful for a larger community than just the community around our church. So that's the work of Community Growers Network and the work of Inglewood Baptist Church, really. Now, I'm going to make an assumption, or at least what I think I heard you ask about the way the seminary is informing this kind of work. There's a couple of things that come to mind. One is, and this was a large draw for me to begin to attend BSK, was the rural ministry program. I caution, and I've learned this at BSK, I caution all of us to realize that rural doesn't necessarily mean agrarian, and agrarian doesn't necessarily mean rural, but our approach to the work we do is an agrarian spirituality. And so it has, Ellen Davis is one of the textbooks we read, Scripture, Culture, and Agriculture, an agrarian reading of the Bible. And Ellen Davis, my paraphrase is she would say, agrarianism is loving the earth and every creature. And so that's the way we begin to think about how we do what we do. And I'll expand it into our Sunday morning. And this is a real pragmatic and happy outcome. It's not that I don't have to plan for Sunday morning, but every week I bring something from the classroom that sort of is obviously something we can talk about on a Sunday morning. And so that it kind of makes my life easier, to be honest with you.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, all three of you have some exciting things that are going on in your life in terms of ministry. And so I would ask the question. I don't know. Well, if you can give me an idea, first of all, I know that Holly is just a first-year student, and the two of you, I'm not sure, BJ and Mark, how long you've been with the school, but if you could give us an idea of that, and then also, what is it that you see that we could do that would improve upon your learning experience so that we can share with others going forward? And the same thing for you as well. It might have been something you said, I expected this, but then I got this over here, and maybe they should do this, So we'll start with Mark.
Okay, yeah, I've got a very specific idea.
Okay.
That grew out of an intensive that I participated in March in the Rural Ministry Certificate Program. We had a class where we met. It was a tutorial. It was set up as a tutorials, but there were two of us in it. And so we met about once a month with Dr. Inskoresik, the professor who guides that program. But the intensive was held in Port Royal, Kentucky at the Baptist Church in Port Royal. So we were together for, I think, 4 days, like 6 hours a day, doing conversations, reporting on things we'd read and studied. And I understand and I value the opportunity to do this education on Zoom. But if all or most classes had an opportunity for people to sit in the classroom together, even if for just a couple of days, it was a great experience to be in the classroom with my friend Stephen, who I'd only seen on the screen until that moment. Mm-hmm. So that, I understand there's funding that comes along with that. Mm-hmm. But happily, funding's not my job. You just asked what I thought.
That's okay. We love that. And as a matter of fact, I direct the Siloam project, which is focused on building our community. We're 100% using the internet, and so I will definitely take that into consideration. So
I'd like to say one more thing about in-person engagement, and this is bragging on BSK. Some of you may know my daughter-in-law, Cassie Bulig. She is a graduate. She just finished this spring. Yeah, and so our family, we all went to the graduation events and ceremonies, and it was just delightful. Just a great experience to be in the room with folks, to meet folks, to have a meal with folks. And so just reinforcing the reality. Zoom is the reality, but if we can find more ways to get in the room together, it's just great.
Yeah, and part of that experience, bringing in other students and having, at least providing a hotel room for them for that night.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
No problem. But that's part of the Siloam project.
Yeah,
so
right.
So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. BJ?
Well, to be honest, I actually just started in January. So I mean,
okay.
for me thus far, things look great. I look forward to the various classes that I'm going to continue to take. I'm kind of at this point, again, I feel like I keep copying Holly, but I'm also in the certificate program, the Exploring Ministry, because I kind of thought, let me just sort of feel this out and kind of, in a way, kind of like, all right, if I can only take one class at a time, there is light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, as far as like I'll have that certificate tangibly, in my hand. But I am very seriously considering and thinking of just kind of rolling that over into an actual Master's of Divinity, so that I could, at the very least, kind of be a more robust associate pastor, but maybe someday have my own church.
Yeah.
And that would be kind of neat.
Yeah, and that'll bless a lot of people.
Oh, thank
so
you.
Appreciate it. Holly?
And there may be already something like this. And if there is, forgive me, because I'm new and I'm learning. But one thing I did notice in my class is you have a room full of people working for church. And I got the impression that wherever these people were, whatever city they were in, they didn't necessarily have a support group of other ministers that they could talk to. And so a lot of our class time was, I really want to talk about something that happened in my church or my congregation or something I'm feeling, or I preached a really good sermon last week. What did y'all think about it? And I did often think, well, this is class time, but it might be nice to have just some special time set aside for support and affirmation and to tell stories and get feedback and bounce ideas off each other. That's the only thing I can think of.
Well, that's an excellent idea.
Yeah.
Very
And we're going to make you the president of the Student Association. No, we don't have a student association, but yeah, that's an excellent idea as well. And so you and I are going to talk about
Okay.
that, okay? So for sure. Yeah. So any other comments that you all want to end up with, share with us?
Oh, gosh.
I'm grateful for the model that BSK shifted to that allows people like myself who could not, like as I mentioned earlier, physically uproot and move to a seminary, the opportunity to still have that experience of going through seminary. I'm very, very grateful for that.
Thanks.
Yeah, my thoughts gratitude as well. It's been affordable. It's been the perfect size for me, and so I just have been extremely and continue to be extremely grateful for the opportunity.
Excellent.
Gratitude as well. Coming back into a school after 20 years was very intimidating, and right off the bat after the first class, I no longer felt intimidated. I just felt excited about learning, and y'all made it really easy, and all of the pathways to get to whatever your end goal is, whether it's the certificate or the MDiv or your DMin. I really, really appreciate that you've made the education accessible, no matter how you're approaching ministry. It's been wonderful.
Excellent. And well, we're glad that the three of you are here at BSK. The certificate program, the MDiv, now we have the MA program as well, all of those things. But, we try to make sure that it's some way that people in the local congregations can receive the theological education that we believe is so important for people in the local areas to be able to share with others as well. So I want to thank the three of you today, Mark, BJ, and Holly, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I'm David Cassidy, the president at Baptist Seminary of Kentucky, or BSK as we call it. If you've enjoyed this podcast, I hope you will take a moment to make a contribution so that we can continue to make excellent content like this podcast and so many others that we have planned. You can do so by going to bsk.edu and click on the Give button. Thank you so much for your support.